she had really been tasked with bringing these cases against his political rivals. So the fact that she didn't coordinate is very stunning. This is usually something with a case this big, particularly when there's a close affiliation with the White House and what we've heard from President Trump. The fact that they didn't coordinate is really something.
Okay, so the Department of Justice is literally tearing itself apart right now, like we're talking about an actual civil war inside one of the most powerful institutions in America. And Attorney General Pam Bondi just made this surprise move to try and stop the bleeding before the whole thing collapses. This is wild. This is absolutely insane when you think about what's happening. So here's the deal. Late Wednesday, October 15th, Bondi calls this emergency meeting with senior DOJ officials, and she tells them, and I'm quoting here, "Our mission is justice, not politics. We must move forward as one department." But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest, you can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video. Can you believe she had to say that? The Attorney General of the United States had to remind her own department that they're supposed to be about justice, not politics. That tells you everything about how bad things have gotten inside the DOJ. But let's back up for a second, because to understand why Bondi is doing this reset, you need to know what's been happening. And honestly, it's been a complete disaster. On October 9th, just a week before Bondi's announcement, the Justice Department indicted Letitia James, you know, the New York Attorney General, the one who's been going after Trump for years, the one who won that massive fraud case against him. Yeah, her. And the timing? Come on. Everyone knows this was political. Everyone. Trump's been publicly demanding that the DOJ go after James for months, calling her corrupt, saying she's weaponizing the justice system against him. And then suddenly, boom, she gets indicted. The optics are absolutely terrible. This looks like pure retaliation. This looks like Trump using the Justice Department as his personal weapon against political enemies. And people inside the DOJ, they're furious about it. According to reports, multiple prosecutors resigned over the James indictment. Not just one or two people quietly leaving. Multiple prosecutors walked out in protest. That's huge. These are career professionals who've dedicated their lives to the Justice Department. And they're saying, nope, I'm done. I can't be part of this anymore. That's devastating for an institution. When your own people are resigning in protest, that means you've crossed a major line. And it gets worse. 22 state attorneys general, that's nearly half the states in America, they put out this joint statement condemning the James indictment. They called it, and I'm quoting again, a retaliatory prosecution directed by the White House. 22 state AGs. Think about that. These aren't random activists or political pundits. These are the top law enforcement officials from 22 different states. And they're publicly saying the White House is directing retaliatory prosecutions. That's not just criticism. That's an institutional crisis. That's state-level law enforcement officials saying they don't trust federal law enforcement anymore. But wait, there's more. Because internal DOJ memos got leaked to Politico, and these memos show that over a dozen officials inside the department have been privately warning about, quote, dangerous politicization of federal law enforcement. Over a dozen officials privately warning about dangerous politicization. This isn't just a few disgruntled employees. This is widespread concern inside the Justice Department that the institution is being destroyed from within. And apparently, Bondi had already been firing people, U.S. attorneys who dissented or questioned her decisions. Gone, demoted, pushed out. She's been cleaning house of anyone who won't go along with the program. So now you've got resignations, firings, leaked memos, state AGs condemning the department, and prosecutors openly questioning whether they're serving justice or serving Trump. That's when Bondi calls her emergency meeting. That's when she tries to do this reset. According to Reuters, part of Bondi's reset plan includes reinstating 2 senior career prosecutors who were demoted last month. She's trying to throw them a bone, trying to show that she's listening to concerns, trying to calm everyone down before more people walk out. But here's the thing. Is it going to work? Can you really just hit the reset button after you've indicted the New York Attorney General on what everyone believes are political orders from the White House? I mean, come on. You can't unring that bell. You can't prosecute Trump's biggest enemy and then act like the DOJ is still impartial. That's not how credibility works. And this matters. This matters so much. Because the Justice Department isn't just some random government agency. This is the institution that's supposed to uphold the rule of law. This is where justice is supposed to happen, regardless of politics. When people lose faith in the DOJ, when they start believing that prosecutions are politically motivated, the entire system breaks down. Because if you can't trust that justice is blind, if you think prosecutors are just going after whoever the president doesn't like, then what's the point? We're talking about fundamental questions of American democracy here. Can a president use the Justice Department to prosecute political opponents? Should the Attorney General be independent, or should they serve the president's political interests? What happens when career prosecutors think their institution is being weaponized? These aren't abstract questions anymore. This is happening right now, in real time, and Bondi is trying to put out the fire before it consumes everything. Some people are calling this Watergate-style stuff, comparing it to when Nixon tried to use the Justice Department against his enemies. And honestly, the comparison isn't crazy. We've got a president pressuring the DOJ to indict his political opponents. We've got mass resignations. We've got leaked memos warning about politicization. That's exactly the kind of thing that destroyed Nixon's presidency, and now it's happening again under Trump. So Bondi's reset? This isn't just about internal DOJ drama. This is about whether American institutions can survive Trump's second term. This is about whether the Justice Department can maintain any credibility going forward. This is about whether we still have rule of law or whether we've become a country where presidents can prosecute whoever they want. Stick around, because we're about to break down exactly how this DOJ civil war started, why Bondi's reset probably won't work, and what this means for 2026 and beyond. Alright, so let's dig into the details here, because the surface story, DOJ in chaos, AG tries to fix it, that's just the beginning. The real story is about how we got to this point and why it's so much worse than most people realize. So first, let's talk about the Letitia James indictment, because that's what triggered this whole crisis. Letitia James has been going after Trump for years. She's the New York Attorney General who won that massive civil fraud case against him, the one where Trump was found liable for inflating his assets, the one that could cost him hundreds of millions of dollars. Trump absolutely hates her. He's been calling her names on social media, claiming she's corrupt, saying she's part of a witch hunt, standard Trump stuff when someone beats him in court. But here's where it gets dark. Trump hasn't just been complaining on social media. He's been publicly demanding that the Justice Department investigate her, prosecute her, lock her up. And then, on October 9th, it happened. The DOJ announced an indictment of Letitia James. Now, the official story is that this indictment is based on legitimate charges, that there's real evidence of wrongdoing, that this has nothing to do with Trump's personal vendetta, but nobody believes that. Nobody, because the timing is too perfect, the pressure from Trump has been too public, and the pattern is too obvious. Trump goes after his enemies using the Justice Department. That's what this looks like to everyone watching. And inside the DOJ, career prosecutors are looking at this indictment and thinking, this is wrong. This is politically motivated. I can't be part of this. That's why multiple prosecutors resigned. They couldn't in good conscience continue working at a department that's being used as a political weapon. And these aren't junior lawyers fresh out of law school. These are senior prosecutors with decades of experience. People who've seen multiple administrations come and go. People who understand the difference between legitimate prosecutions and political hit jobs. When those people resign in protest, that tells you something is seriously wrong. But the resignations are just part of the story, because apparently Bondi saw this coming. She knew the James indictment would be controversial, and she started preparing by getting rid of people who might object. According to those leaked memos, Bondi had already been firing or demoting U.S. attorneys who questioned her decisions. Anyone who showed signs of independence, gone. Anyone who pushed back on politically sensitive cases, pushed out. She was cleaning house, making sure that the people left in the department would go along with whatever Trump wanted. And that's where the comparison to Watergate becomes really relevant, because that's exactly what Nixon tried to do. He tried to purge the Justice Department of anyone who wouldn't help him cover up his crimes. It didn't work for Nixon. The Saturday Night Massacre, when he fired the Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General for refusing to fire the special prosecutor, that became one of the defining moments that led to his resignation. And now we're seeing something similar. Maybe not as dramatic as the Saturday Night Massacre, but the same pattern of a president trying to bend the Justice Department to his will. Now, let's talk about those 22 state attorneys general, because their joint statement was absolutely devastating. These are the top prosecutors from 22 states, and they put out a statement saying that the James indictment is a retaliatory prosecution directed by the White House. Think about what that means. State-level law enforcement officials are publicly accusing the federal government of politically motivated prosecution. That's unprecedented. And it's not just Democratic AGs. Some of these states are swing states with Republican prosecutors, people who aren't automatically opposed to Trump. And even they're saying this looks like political retaliation. That's how bad the optics are. That's how obviously political this appears to everyone watching. And here's the thing. Once you lose that credibility, once people believe the DOJ is just a political tool, it's really hard to get it back, because future prosecutions will always be questioned. Is this legitimate or is this political? People won't know. They won't trust the institution anymore. That's the damage that's being done here. Not just to Bondi's reputation, not just to Trump's presidency, but to the Justice Department itself as an institution. Now, let's talk about what's happening inside the DOJ, because those leaked memos give us a window into how bad things really are. Over a dozen officials warning about dangerous politicization. That's not normal bureaucratic pushback. That's people genuinely scared about what's happening to their institution. And they're not just worried about the James case. They're worried about a pattern of the White House directing prosecutions, a pattern of political considerations overriding legal ones, a pattern of the Justice Department becoming an extension of Trump's personal legal team. One memo reportedly said that career prosecutors feel like they're being asked to choose between their oaths to the Constitution. That's a devastating indictment of how the department is being run. And that's the context for Bondi's reset. She's looking at resignations, leaked memos, state AGs condemning her department, and she's realizing, oh crap, I might lose control of this institution entirely. Because if enough people resign, if enough prosecutors refuse to work on cases they think are political, the department can't function. You need buy-in from career staff to actually do the work of justice. So Bondi calls her emergency meeting. She reinstates 2 senior prosecutors who were demoted. She gives this speech about justice over politics, but here's the problem. Actions speak louder than words, and the action everyone's focused on is the Letitia James indictment. You can't indict Trump's biggest enemy and then claim you're about justice, not politics. That's not credible. Plus, reinstating 2 prosecutors after you've already fired or pushed out dozens, that's too little too late. It's like burning down a building and then offering to help sweep up the ashes. The damage is already done. And there's another angle here that's really important, the political angle. Because Trump's second term has been defined by these kinds of institutional battles. The Federal Reserve, the courts, the military, and now the Justice Department. He's trying to bend every institution to his will, and some are resisting more than others. The DOJ was supposed to be the easy one. Bondi is a Trump loyalist. She was supposed to execute his agenda without question, and for a while she did. But even she's discovering there are limits. You can only push career staff so far before they start walking out. You can only politicize the department so much before you lose credibility entirely. And Trump's team is worried about this. They're worried about the perception of chaos. They're worried about the 2026 midterms. Because remember, we're heading into an election year, and Democrats are absolutely going to run on this. Trump weaponized the Justice Department. Trump prosecuted his political enemies. Trump destroyed the independence of federal law enforcement. That's powerful messaging, especially for voters who care about rule of law and institutional integrity. And even Trump's base might have concerns. Because what happens when a Democrat becomes president? Are they going to use the same playbook? Are they going to prosecute Trump and his allies using the Justice Department? Once you break these norms, once you establish that presidents can use the DOJ politically, it cuts both ways. Future presidents will have that same power. That's why Bondi is trying to reset, not because she suddenly cares about institutional independence, but because the chaos is becoming politically damaging. And that's the really cynical part of this whole thing. The reset isn't about fixing the problem. It's about managing the optics. Bondi is not going to stop prosecuting Trump's enemies. She's just going to try to do it more quietly, with less obvious White House pressure, with better cover stories. The politicization will continue. It'll just be better hidden. And that might actually be worse, because at least when it's obvious, people can see what's happening and push back. When it's subtle, when it's hidden behind legitimate sounding justifications, it's harder to fight. So yeah, the DOJ civil war isn't over. Bondi's reset is just a temporary ceasefire. The fundamental problems, the political pressure from Trump, the loss of institutional independence, those haven't been solved. They've just been papered over for now. Okay, so let's break this down into what actually matters. Because there's a lot of complexity here, but really it comes down to 3 massive points. Point 1, the Justice Department has lost its credibility, and Bondi's reset won't fix that. Look, the Justice Department's credibility is built on one thing, the belief that prosecutions are based on evidence and law, not politics. When people lose that belief, when they think the DOJ is just going after whoever the president doesn't like, the whole system falls apart. And right now, that belief is gone. The Letitia James indictment destroyed it. Because everyone can see what happened, Trump publicly demanded James be prosecuted. He called her corrupt for years. He pressured the DOJ, and then suddenly she gets indicted. That's not subtle. That's not ambiguous. That's obvious political retaliation. And once you've done that, once you've shown that the DOJ will prosecute the president's enemies, you can't just reset. You can't give one speech and reinstate 2 prosecutors and expect everyone to forget. The damage is permanent. Or at least it's permanent for this administration. Future attorneys general will have to work really hard to rebuild trust. But Bondi, she owns this now. Her name is attached to the James indictment. History will remember her as the AG who weaponized the Justice Department. And that's going to haunt her. When law schools teach about politicization of law enforcement, when historians write about Trump's second term, Bondi's going to be the cautionary tale. Point 2, we're watching institutional collapse in real time, and it should terrify everyone. This isn't just about the Justice Department. This is about what happens when a president systematically breaks down institutional independence. Trump's doing it with the Fed. He's trying to control interest rate decisions. He's doing it with the courts. He's threatening judges who rule against him. He's doing it with the military. He's deploying troops over state objections. And now he's doing it with the DOJ, using it to prosecute political opponents. Each institution that falls makes the next one easier because there's less resistance, less pushback, less belief that norms matter. And we're at a really dangerous point right now because these institutions are what separate democracy from authoritarianism. In a democracy, presidents are checked by independent institutions. Courts can strike down unconstitutional actions. The Justice Department prosecutes based on law, not politics. The military answers to civilian control, but maintains professional independence. In an authoritarian system, all those institutions serve the leader. The courts rubber stamp whatever the president wants. The Justice Department goes after enemies. The military does the president's bidding without question. We're sliding toward that second model, and the DOJ civil war is part of that slide. When career prosecutors are resigning because they think their institution is being politicized, that's a warning sign. When state attorneys general are condemning federal prosecutions as political retaliation, that's a warning sign. These are canaries in the coal mine, and we should be paying attention. Point 3, this is going to dominate the 2026 midterms, and Republicans should be worried because Democrats just got handed an incredible campaign issue. Trump weaponized the Justice Department to prosecute his political enemies. That's simple, that's clear, that's powerful, and is backed up by resignations, leaked memos, and statements from 22 state AGs. You can't spin your way out of that. You can't claim it's fake news when prosecutors are literally resigning in protest. And this issue cuts across party lines because even conservatives who support Trump on policy might be uncomfortable with using the DOJ politically because they understand the precedent it sets. They understand that future Democratic presidents will have the same power. They understand that breaking these norms is dangerous regardless of who's in charge. So Democrats are going to hammer this every swing district, every close Senate race. Do you want a president who uses law enforcement against his enemies? And Republicans won't have a good answer because the evidence is overwhelming. The James indictment looks political. The resignations prove internal opposition. The state AGs confirm it looks like retaliation. This could be the issue that decides control of Congress in 2026, combined with other concerns about Trump's use of power. This paints a picture of a president out of control. And that's why Bondi's trying to reset, not because she cares about institutional independence, but because the political damage is mounting. Trump's team sees the polls. They see the public concern about weaponization of government. They know this could hurt them in 2026, so they're trying to tamp down the controversy, make it go away, show that they're reasonable and care about justice. But it's too late. The damage is done. The story is set, and Democrats aren't going to let voters forget about it. Now, let's talk about what happens next, because Bondi's reset is just a band-aid on a much bigger problem. The fundamental issue hasn't changed. Trump still wants to use the DOJ against his enemies. Bondi's still willing to do it. The only thing that's changed is they're trying to be quieter about it. So expect more political prosecutions, just better disguise, with more legal justification, with less obvious White House pressure. The James indictment was too blatant. It made the strategy too obvious. So they'll learn from that mistake. Future prosecutions will have better cover stories. They'll involve multiple charges, so it looks more legitimate. They'll be announced with less fanfare, but the political motivation will still be there. It'll just be hidden better. And that's actually more dangerous because when it's obvious, people can fight back. When it's subtle, it's harder to prove. Also expect more resignations because Bondi's reset won't satisfy the career prosecutors who are concerned about politicization. Reinstating 2 people isn't enough. Giving one speech about justice over politics isn't enough. The fundamental problem, Trump's interference in DOJ decisions, that hasn't been addressed. So more prosecutors will leave, more memos will leak, more damage will be done to the institution. And the crazy thing, Trump probably doesn't care. He's focused on using the DOJ as a weapon. Institutional credibility is secondary to punishing his enemies. That's the mindset. That's what we're dealing with. A president who values personal loyalty and political vengeance over institutional integrity. And that's terrifying because institutions are what protect us from abuse of power. When those institutions are destroyed, there's nothing left to stop a president from doing whatever they want. We're not there yet. The DOJ still has some independence. Some prosecutors are still resisting. Some judges are still pushing back, but we're getting closer. And Bondi's reset isn't going to stop that slide. It's just a temporary pause, a brief moment where they try to look reasonable before going right back to what they were doing. So pay attention to this story because it's not about one indictment or one attorney general. It's about whether American institutions can survive Trump's second term intact. And right now, the answer is unclear. The DOJ is damaged, but not destroyed. Career staff are resigning, but some are staying. The public is concerned, but not fully mobilized. What happens next depends on whether people care enough to push back, whether Congress exercises oversight, whether voters punish this behavior in 2026. If they do, maybe institutions can be rebuilt. Maybe norms can be restored. Maybe the Justice Department can regain its credibility. But if they don't, if this becomes the new normal, then we fundamentally change what kind of country America is. And that's what's at stake in Bondi's DOJ civil war, not just internal department drama, but the future of American democracy itself. Next time, we're diving into the specific charges against Letitia James and why legal experts think the case is likely to fall apart, because the legal problems with this indictment might be even worse than the political problems.